Welcome to Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto, the show dedicated to focusing on the truth that is always evolving within us and around us, where we explore the potentiality of truth as a highly esteemed value at a time in history when most people have more on their plates than any one human should. This podcast aims to cut through the noise, the ignorance, and the complexity of 21st century living by exploring the truths of a diverse range of incredible voices. From authors, artists, creatives, and educators to activists, speakers, and those in various scientific and esoteric fields, our guests hail from cultures and countries all over the world. On Mondays, we post interviews, and on Sundays, we post sermons, which are more personal and revolve around whatever I'm musing on that week. No episode of this show is meant for everyone, and every episode is meant for whoever needs it on the right day at the right time, and you never know when that might be for you. Not all guest views will reflect my own, and that's intentional. We don't learn, grow, heal, or improve by staying in our comfortable bubbles with all of our people who look, think, or live exactly how we do. In this show, you'll get the full range. Everything from health, communication, money, success, parenting, desire, and spirituality, to making pivots and transitions in life, and topics related to psychology, storytelling, gender and race issues, emotional intelligence, and sacred activism. We can learn a lot from each other, and we need each other. You can expect courageous conversations when you tune into the show that will range from insightful, uplifting, and illuminating to uncomfortable and sometimes even confrontational. But no matter what, they'll always be filled with compassion and curiosity. Each episode invites you, with a ton of love and respect, to listen with your heart and mind wide open. If you love what you hear or find it useful and inspiring, the best way to show your appreciation is to share the episode and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and now for today's show. Hello, everybody. This is episode number 239 of Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto. I am your host, Elizabeth D'Alto, and today we have Mel Wells with us. Mel Wells is a certified health coach, eating psychology coach, international speaker, and a best-selling Hay House author. And today, I love her big truth. She said, we all learn best by watching what others do rather than by listening what they say. So we took this truth and talked about how people can use social media for a range of things, from judgment to self-love, how diet culture shatters people's ability to see their greatness. We got into her take on the body positivity movement. We talked about hunger, cravings, and how food decisions can reflect your relationship to your life. And again, that's how food decisions can reflect, not how they do. So mind you, whenever it comes to eating and food and eating disorder recovery and things like that, people have a really different experiences. So if you're someone who's had that experience, if you can relate, awesome. And if it doesn't relate to your experience, don't take it as it should. And of course, if you want to find me on social media and share your experience around those things, I always love hearing other people's perspectives. She also let me ask her a ton of questions about her former life as a soap opera actress in the UK and what it was like when she came here to the US and started auditioning. It was super fascinating, and I need to let you know, we had to move a couple things around on the show recently. So in the episode, I said that this was number 241, but it's actually number 239. So the show notes can be found at untameyourself.com/T as in truth, T as in telling -239. Again, that's untameyourself.com/TT-239 for the correct show notes page. All right, y'all, let's get into it. Welcome back to Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto, everybody. I am here with Mel Wells, and she's in Bali. What's funny is, like, I'm in Southern California. It's not like it's that cold here, but it just feels bizarre to me. Usually I'm the one in a tank top and the person on the other side. And I mean, I know some of you are listening, not watching, so you don't know that I'm wearing a sweater and she's in like a tank top, but I was just having an experience of like a weird switcheroo for a second. So how are you, friends?
Oh, I'm fab, thank you. So lovely to finally get to chat with you. It's been a while.
We've been trying to get this on the books for how long? I don't even know.
A long time.
So really exciting. All right, first question. What is a truth that's impacting you in a big way right now?
A truth that's really impacting me right now is that we all learn best from watching what others do rather than listening to what they say, which has really impacted me in my whole life, really, but especially as a teacher, in that, like, people are really just paying attention to how I live rather than what I'm saying to them necessarily, because I learn the same way, and I think everyone's the same. And this is really kind of cemented itself in my life around this time of year.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, because something I've been considering, I just, what day is it? Around the time we're recording this, it's January 10th. So I'm just like a week out of having taken off like 2.5 weeks from social media, which I really needed to do. And I thought a lot about social media while I was on my break and how it impacts, the day to day. And I know a lot of people say, oh, people just share the highlight reel. I don't. This is why I love Insta stories. I just kind of like give people a little peek into whatever the hell's going on in my life. But, and I feel like you do that too. So how does this truth impact how you show up on social media? Because, like, I know you have a big social media presence. You're on there like every day, Insta stories, all the things.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's more about like realizing that what people kind of are paying attention to what's not being said. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't say that it's like changed the way that I'm necessarily doing anything, but it's just kind of at the moment, it's just making me realize that people are more interested in like the subtext.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like, yeah, I don't know. It's just cool. And I'm noticing that I learn the same way. Like, I learn from watching what other people do, not necessarily reading what they're telling me to do, but I'm watching what they do instead.
The subtext thing is interesting, because one of the things that I notice, and I actually think can be really dangerous about social media, is that most people are not reading between the lines in a way that is favorable or uplifting for them. Right? Like, they're putting someone on a pedestal, or they're comparing themselves when they have no idea. Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, because there's so much, like, we see snippets, right? And, like, it's not possible to share everything. I also don't think it's responsible to share everything. People ask me, I'm curious what people ask you. People ask me all the time, like, show us more of like your rituals and like your daily routines. And I'm like, no. That stuff's sacred. Like, that's my stuff. Like, I'm not going to show you my altar. I'm not going to let you know, like, what I'm doing in the morning, like, that's for me.
Completely. It's the same for me. Like, people think that I spend a lot of time on social media, but like, it must be like less than 1% of my whole life. Really, when I think about how much I've got my phone out and I'm sharing something, it's such a very small percentage. And that's really important that everyone kind of knows about everyone. Even someone that you think is storying their entire freaking day, that's still just a very small percentage. Yeah. And I mean, it gets annoying, the people that you don't want to, like, the people that you're around, like, if you're just there with your phone out storying the whole thing or filming the whole thing, it's like, will you put that thing away now? Like,
yeah, I had experience like that.
Relationships, it's really not a way that I want to conduct my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I had an experience like that while I was on my social media break. I was out with some friends, and I'm sure it felt way more extreme because I was not on my phone at all.
Oh, yeah. I've had that before when I've been on like a digital detox, and you really notice how much everyone else is just like on it constantly.
Yeah, yeah.
And oh shit, this is me too.
Yeah. And I was with friends who are probably on more than the average person. And I was kind of feeling like, wow, like, I didn't feel the need to like interrupt them and be like, you guys want to put that shit away and hang out with me or what? But it was so fascinating. So in your work, I know a lot of your message centers around self-love.
It does. Yeah, it does. And I think this really interesting, this phone thing and this social media thing is kind of like a hidden or like much more subtle way that addictive qualities show up in us when we just can't stand to be still with ourselves and just be alone with our own thoughts. And my history and like how I got into teaching self-love, and a lot of the stuff that I do is around psychology, around food, because I had an eating disorder for like 7 years, and so that was like a huge addiction for me. But I think like addiction shows up in much more subtle ways, and social media is one of those ways. It's like we can't just be still, so we have to reach for something, and sometimes that's food, sometimes that's like alcohol, sometimes that's texting someone, sometimes it's like social media. But it shows up for everyone, I think, in this day and age in a really subtle way. And I think like to really get a hold of that, to become really aware of that, we have to like be with what is and love everything that comes up, or at least try to accept it.
Do you find, so by the way, I just want to say this for anyone listening, we have like the slightest, most tiny delay, probably because you're all the way in Bali, and that happens sometimes when people have internet all the way on the other side of the world. So I am not interrupting you. Sometimes it's just not syncing up. I got a review in iTunes one day. Someone said I was interrupting Lisa Lister, actually, and I'm like, no, it was just bad internet, you guys.
Oh, I love it.
So funny. So, yeah, I think this is a really interesting conversation about the intersection between self-love and social media, because I see people do really beautiful things, like use it to share expressive photos, or, a lot of people have judgment for selfies. Oh, you're so self-centered. But what if someone is totally uncomfortable being in front of the camera, and that is an act of like courage and self-love for them?
Yeah, exactly. And like if someone wants to show off their new hair and they feel good about themselves, who are we to shoot them down? Yeah. Really, like why can't we just celebrate everyone feeling good in their own skin? Like no matter how that makes us feel.
Yeah.
So it's something like I've kind of been through my own thing with, because I can admit that I used to be super judgmental about like a lot of people on social media. Whether that was like reality stars or like the like models and people that were doing that in a huge way. And I had to really kind of look at myself and go, well, what is it within me that I'm rejecting here? And why am I judging these people that are actually, if they're so confident, why can't I just celebrate that? So that's what I'm now doing. And I'm like, anyone that is brave enough and courageous enough to put themselves out there like that, actually that's pretty cool. Like that's not something that I deserved. That's not something that I can like criticize or get on my high horse about. It doesn't make me any better than them. Like just let them do what they want to do. Like good for them. That's how I feel about it now.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Actually, the day we're recording this, I posted an article on Medium, and I rarely feel nervous to post anything ever that I create or write or do, but I felt nervous about this one. And I had one woman really giving me some crap for it. And throughout her comments of being rude to me, she called me a coward. And I wasn't going to argue with her, but I wanted to be like, lady, do you have any idea actually like how much it took for me to like press publish on this? Call me whatever you want, but like coward is not the thing.
Yes. Oh, there's something that I read by Brene Brown, and it was like, I'm going to paraphrase now, but something about like, if you're not in the ring, you have no right to pull me down. If you're not getting out there and like standing in the ring, because that takes so much courage.
Yeah, it's the Teddy Roosevelt quote that ends with that talks about daring greatly. That whole like kind of book. I love everything Brene Brown does. But yeah, she says it's not, if you're not in the arena, you really actually don't get to criticize those of us who are.
That's the one.
So amazing.
Yeah.
So you come from a background of performing. You were an actress, yeah?
Yes, I was an actress on a soap opera in the UK for a few years. Which was fun. But I went in when I was only 18. So it was quite a shock to the system. And even though I'd been, doing it my whole childhood, still going into that environment it was just a very shocking, it just really rocked my world. And I did love it. And I still see myself as a performer, and I really love that. I'm really loving that aspect of me right now that still exists, which I did reject for a long time. But yeah, it was that kind of culture shock and the competition, the rejection. I was already quite insecure and lacking a lot of self-love. And so that kind of perpetuated my addictions that I already had. So it was a beautiful experience, but it was tainted because I was an addict, that whole time. I was really obsessed with something other than that.
Yeah. I'm so curious though, even though that was going on behind the scenes. So I used to watch soap operas growing up. I had this babysitter when I was little, and then her daughter babysat me. So, and then when I went into college, like I watched here in the US, there's a soap opera called General Hospital. I basically watched that from elementary school into college. So like almost 20 years, 15, 20 years of watching this friggin' soap opera. So what was it like to be like, what was your character? Like, who did you play? I am so intrigued by this.
Oh my God. It's crazy. Like the storylines that you get on a soap opera. So like I first came in as a stripper, but I was this stripper with like a different kind of, with like basically like she was a stripper by night, but during the day she was like this big huge nerd. So she was into like bird watching and train spotting and like stamp collecting, and just had this like really geeky, nerdy, dorky personality. But then like at night she would be like off to the strip club to like earn her money.
That was amazing.
So that was like my entry, and then they ended up, I got written out of the stripper side of things because they were like, we don't want to. It was like it wasn't like a nighttime show, so they were like, that storyline's not going to last very long. It's just to like get you in, basically. So then I fell in love with a guy that was in jail. He had like a history of like being a bit of a psychopath. I fell in love with him. We were like pen pals. Then when he got out, I basically went a bit nuts and I became a really jealous girlfriend. And then we had this whole storyline where I was jealous of him spending time with his sister, and I just became like a real bunny boiler. Do you know that term?
No, what does that mean?
I don't know. It's like, I guess it's this term that we have in the UK that it basically just means that you are just really jealous and possessive woman.
Bunny boiler, huh?
It's so random. It's the most random term ever. But yeah, and then it kind of suddenly came out that I'd been in like witness protection, and that I had like killed a child when I was a child, and all this kind of crazy stuff went down that I didn't even know was going to go down when I came in. But yeah, it's so funny working on a soap opera, because I swear to God, you will get the script and you'll learn it like a week before you shoot, and then you'll get on set and they'll be like, okay, so we changed the scene and now this is happening, and it's like a completely different thing than what you thought you were showing up to work for that day. But it's an experience for sure.
And how did you roll with those punches at that time as such a young person? Was that stressful for you?
Yeah, do you know what? It wasn't the work that was stressful for me. Like the workload was fine. The memorizing, the scripts, like the actual acting was fine. What I really struggled with was being on TV each night and having to watch myself, because I felt I was so full of self-loathing that I hated when people recognized me. I hated watching myself on TV. Like I was so consumed with my eating disorder that that's what I really struggled with. I looked at all the other girls on set that were so beautiful and so small, and I've always been, I've had a much broader frame, and I'm 5'10", and so even as an 18-year-old, I kind of was aware that I was much bigger or taller than like all of the other actresses, and that, like, if anything, that whole kind of pressure of that industry is what really just tore me down, to be honest. I just didn't have the tools to cope with that, which is why really self-love has been my biggest teacher and completely changed how I do everything. But God, I wish I'd have known what I know now at 18. But of course, when you're 18, you just don't know any of that stuff. It just goes straight over your head. You're not aware enough of yourself to even know what self-love is,
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think about that sometimes. Like if someone were to use the terms with me, that I use now, even like 10 years ago, I would have been like, what is this person talking about?
Completely. Yeah. And so like there's a whole thing going on in London at the moment of the school systems bringing in more mindfulness into their classrooms. And I think about this a lot because I've thought like, how cool would it be for self-love and just emotional guidance tools and techniques to kind of be in classrooms? But it would definitely, the language would have to be completely different to start with, at least, to really know where those people are at as well. And for especially like kids nowadays are obviously just spending all their life on social media. It's a huge problem, and like anxiety, depression, and eating disorders in like young girls and boys is like higher than it's been in history. So we need to balance that out. We need to like get into the school systems, I think, with this kind of self-love teaching, mindfulness, awareness, just self-awareness really would be a huge tool for, I think, all teenagers to learn.
I was just having this conversation. My project manager was in town last week, and she's been through every single level and course in Landmark Forum. And her daughter, who's 15, has also gone through some of the things. And I was like, wow, that is amazing. Imagine being 15 and having like language and tools and like even a little bit of emotional intelligence. We were talking about how like that's the kind of stuff, even also just some more life skills, right? Like I know back in the day they used to, I don't know what it's like in the UK, you can tell me, they used to have things like home economics or like cooking. Yeah. There's so many things now that like people don't know how to do because you can press a button on your phone and someone will do it for you.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it's the same for us. It's the same for us.
So I'm curious with, at the time of recording this, it's like right after the Golden Globes. Here in the US, we are in the throes of this revolution in Hollywood, which is really cool to watch it happen, where finally some really unprecedented action is being taken to eradicate some really not okay practices and behaviors. So I'm curious, coming from a different culture, is it the similar, same where you come from, different, less intense, more intense? And I know you've spent a lot of time in the US as well. So for the contrast or the perspective, I'm really interested.
Yeah, I definitely experienced as a young actress feeling like, okay, this is an industry where my boundaries and my morals are going to be tested. But I definitely think that because I came over to LA and did a few pilot seasons, which means basically going to LA. I guess you know what that means, but for anyone that isn't aware of that, familiar with that term, it's like a season in LA when all the new series are getting shot, like the pilots are getting shot for them, which is like the first episode. So there's tons of like auditioning happening, loads of actors and actresses head to LA, and it's like January through to March. And there's just loads of stuff going on in LA around that time. And so I went out a couple of times and got like an agent out there and was like auditioning and just being in those kind of circles. And it was so much of a thing in LA that it really shocked me a lot more than London, definitely, I would say. But I followed that when all of that broke out about the Harvey Weinstein, and it really hit me hard because I've been in those circles in LA, not him specifically, but I've been in similar kind of circles where people do turn a blind eye and people do go, oh, that's just the way it is. And no one is really going, this is horrendous. What the hell? How is this acceptable in this? Why is this normal? Why is this okay? And so, yeah, it is absolutely dreadful. And like for me personally, like when I went out there, I was 21 and I was good. Like I was really, by that point, I was like pretty sure of myself, and that kind of thing, I would never kind of let my boundaries down. And if anything, I was like, found myself at a few parties and would always be the one that was like, I'm not drinking, I'm not doing anything here that my mum would not be happy with. And I saw like a lot of young actresses that were kind of just so impressionable and so like vulnerable and naive, and definitely like it's a space where dominant, powerful males with money and control have the ability to use that and abuse that. But yeah, it was crazy when it all came out, because I was like, wow, I really feel like I understand the position that a lot of these actresses were in for this to happen.
Yeah.
Especially because it's such a industry that you don't really have any kind of control over your own success to a degree. You do feel quite what's the word? You just feel like your destiny is not always in your own hands. So you can feel a little bit lost sometimes. But yeah, it's for sure like very prevalent in LA, and I definitely experienced that.
I'm really curious. Did you find it easy to make friends? Or was it, I'm curious how women relate to each other. I remember hearing a stat, and I don't even remember what the numbers anymore, but it was basically the number of acting jobs actually available every year and the number of actors and actresses that are going out for them. And the disproportion is absolutely off the charts. So I know it's one of the most competitive things. And I'm curious if that like is something to bond over because you're all in it together, or if it was just like so hard to make friends because probably you were going out for similar things as the same people.
Yeah, it's interesting. So like, I remember going into, this is years ago now, but I remember like going into my agent's office, and I'd had like 4 auditions in like 3 months. And I kind of went in being all like, why haven't I had more? And he was like, so let me tell you this. Those 4 auditions that you went for, probably about 4,000 people got submitted for, and about 40 people got seen. So that's good. And I was like, oh. So yeah, I can completely back that up. It's like, it's crazy out there, to be honest. For me, making friends was, I mean, I've made a couple of really good friends in that time of my life that I'm still really close with now. But there's definitely something in the air of like, because when you go to an audition, you're basically in a waiting room with loads of people that just look the exact same as you, which is crazy. So like, is
that weird?
I guess it's so weird. It's so weird. And then of course you can't help but like compare yourself.
Right.
Because everyone looks the same as you. Everyone has the same kind of vibe as you, or the same, but I didn't find it competitive in terms of like the people that I mixed with and made friends with. I have really good friends with still now, but there's definitely like an air of like, don't make friends with people that you're in direct competition with, obviously, but there's most people you're not in direct competition with, because if they don't look the exact same as you, there's enough people in LA. Like if you want to find like, Siamese twins that are half Brazilian and, come with one leg, then, you will find them, and you'll probably be in a room full of loads of them, because LA just attracts every single type of everything. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I have one more irritating question about this. Thank you so much for indulging my questions about this.
Okay.
It's so interesting because I feel like this is a rare demographic / career path to have on the show. I think at the time your interview is going live, I think I've had one other person who's had any kind of experience like this. So it's just super, super interesting and super fun. And I think also important because it's so glamorized, the lifestyle and the profiles are so glamorized. I think it's important to just show people that like behind the scenes, it's not easy. I think people project ease onto beauty, money, fame, without realizing, I mean, certainly people are privileged and all kinds of things, but it's not like it's this cakewalk. So here's my ridiculous question. The things that you were auditioning for, did you have to learn an American accent, or were you able to have your accent?
Yes, I had an American accent coach that would come around to my apartment
No.
and help me learn. But some of the auditions would let me do as British, but some of them it was like, no, you must be American. And like a lot of the time they want you to walk into the audition room in an American accent, not even introduce yourself as you, just pretend basically. But yeah, going back to what you just touched on with the glamorizing of it, there's a lot of darkness to it. You know, there's definitely like that underworld side of it where there's a lot of stuff going down that isn't talked about in the press. Like obviously everything that's come out. There's a lot of addiction. There's a lot of lost souls, and I was for sure one of them. And you know, for a lot of people, it's a really healthy move to not be in that industry. And for me to leave that industry was a really healthy move at the time, because I'd lost myself really. And yeah, I was lucky enough that I didn't go down the path that a lot of people do in that industry of drugs. And but probably only because I was addicted to my eating disorder. Like that was my addiction. So I wasn't interested in alcohol or partying or drugs, because I was just all obsessed with the food stuff. But yeah, for some people that, you know, you've got to have a really strong spine and very strong sense of self. And to anyone that is in that industry, I just applaud you, because you face so much rejection, so much criticism, there's so much competition, and it really takes a strong person that really knows themselves, that loves themselves, that believes in themselves, and that is dedicated to that craft. Yeah.
Quick break in the show to invite you to join the waitlist for a free tool that I've been working on here behind the scenes for a couple of months now, called the Trust Assessment. If you're new to the show, you might not know that trust is something that threads through every single thing I do and every single thing that I create. And if you've been listening for a while, you definitely already know that. Trust is the number one problem people don't know they have. The level of trust that you have in yourself and in life affects everything, and that's not an exaggeration. If you head on over to wildsoulmovement.com/trust-waitlist, you will be placed on the waitlist to know as soon as the trust assessment is available, which will be on or around March 5th, if you're listening in real time. What you'll get when you complete the assessment is a free personalized trust score, a breakdown of how your current level of trust could be impacting your life, plus stress-free recommendations for what you can do about it. And again, like I mentioned, trust is a problem that a lot of people don't even know they have. So if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know if this applies to me, there's only one way to find out. Take the assessment. Again, the link is wildsoulmovement.com/trust-waitlist. Now back to the show.
So I've been out of that industry for 7 years because I started getting really fascinated about food, health, well-being, but like from the flip side. So I'd obviously already been very obsessed with it. And when my dad passed away from cancer, I started becoming obsessed with the health side of things. And that kind of led me down this path of like becoming a nutritionist, like learning every single nutritional science fact there is to know. And then realizing that I had developed another breed of my addiction, which was basically just like becoming obsessed with clean eating and health. And I was vegan and gluten-free and sugar-free and everything free. And to the point where I was like, okay, I'm running out of things that I can eat now. And so it was then that I realized that, okay, nutrition isn't the answer here, because I still don't love myself. I'm still in this war with myself. So finding all the nutrition information out didn't help me love myself, didn't help me heal. And that's when I started really becoming fascinated with not just our psychology and mindset and relationship with food, and how much of an epidemic not just women, but men are in with diet culture, and how much it brainwashes us, but how important and neglected self-love has been as like a part of that conversation. And so that's kind of what made me start talking about things online. I started revealing more and opening up about my struggles and started training as an eating psychology coach and started working with women on their patterns around food, which I had been healing with just like a lot of self-love, a lot of mindset work. And that was really what made me decide to start working with people. And then before I knew it, I had like a small business, and it was just growing and growing. And then when I wrote my first book, The Goddess Revolution with Hay House, that's when things kind of blew up. But it's really like stems from my own healing and my own pain and my own struggles, and just being really vulnerable about that and just really sharing, because that's really reached a lot of women and girls that have been going through the same thing but haven't felt like they have a voice to or a space to really open up about that. So yeah, but like that, like I've been out of the acting industry for like 7 years, and I feel like I've got to such a good place now within myself that if I chose to, I would now have the mindset and the capacity and the self-love and the strength in myself to enter back into classes, plays, maybe like going back a little bit into that industry. But for me, it's like, it's quite a scary concept to do that, because it was where so much of my suffering and pain began. But there's still definitely like a child within me that is this performer, that maybe kind of that got tainted so much when I was there before.
I'm so interested about people who love performing, because it's just never been my thing. In fact, it's like it kind of triggers me, but just for me. I love that other people do it, but yeah. I've told this on the podcast before, but a couple years ago, I started taking pole dancing classes consistently. I had like dabbled here and there. And in the studio where I was going, they had performances like once a quarter. And I was going to this class, and people were like, oh, are you going to? And I'd signed up for the performance series. But then as it was getting closer, I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is for me. This is not for other people. So it's just, it's fascinating to me. And I've looked at it at a couple different angles to be like, is there any kind of limitation? Is there anything within me? And I've really just chalked it up to being like, I am just not built that way. So I'm always so fascinating. Like, what is it? And I love being on stage, right? I love teaching. I love speaking. I've been on large stages. So I get the energetic exchange and the give and take. But to me, I've always done that in a capacity where there's, an impact on others or a value on others. So I guess, and actually as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, it's funny because I batch the podcast interviews. So you're my fourth interview of the day. And one of the random questions I ask at the end is like what people watch or what they binge on Netflix. And it's now clicking for me, actually, the value I get out of other people's performances. I never thought of it before.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's something that I have like kind of been battling with myself, because like when I started my business and I started working with all these women on their food stuff, and like you feel like, wow, I'm really making an impact on someone else's life. And it made me kind of go, well, God, when I was acting, what impact was that having on anyone's life? No one's. Like it was really just about me. And now I feel so fulfilled, and I'm getting to like, people would say that like their lives have been transformed and all this stuff. And it's like, wow, this is like way more fulfilling. And then I experienced the same thing. Like what I binge watch is Stranger Things. And I'm like, these actors are telling a story that is like woven in to everyone's life, everyone's bedrooms, living rooms. They're buying into this story. And these actors get to share that story and help people kind of temporarily lose themselves from their own world and become lost in this imaginary world. So like to take someone on that journey and to convey that and to tell, because like storytelling is like how we're all built. We tell so many stories to ourselves, to each other. It's like intrinsic to our makeup since, hundreds of thousands of years ago. And so for actors to tell that story, for them to kind of use parts of themselves to express and tell a story and take us on a journey is like actually gives us a lot of value and a lot of pleasure and can be transformative. So yeah, that's something that I've recently realized myself, because I'd always just been like, oh, that was just what even was that? Like, that wasn't for anyone else. What does that do for anyone? Like, what value does that add to anyone's life? And now I'm like, actually, yeah, that is pretty cool. Like, that is value.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so this relates to something I wanted to ask you in your work. What's the age range of the women in your programs?
The age range for me is, I'd say, 25 to 35. But we do have some girls in there that are younger. And we have quite a few that are older as well. We have like mums and daughters that join together.
Oh, that's cool.
But I would say, like, mainly for me, it tends to be 25 to 35. I would say that's like 70%.
Cool. I was super curious. And my work obviously is not food specific, but in my work with women, our range has been 19 to 76. And it's, I mean, obviously the 19 and the 76 and even women in their 60s, that's kind of like the outliers, but inside the bell curve, it's like late 20s to mid 40s. So I'm curious. Yeah. And what made me think of it is I recently connected. There's an actress who I used to watch shows that she was on when I was growing up, and she's coming on the podcast, and I can't see my schedule from here. So I can't remember if if her interview has already come up or is coming after yours. But like, I used to watch, I've seen her in movies. Like, I watched one of her like dramas when I was growing up. And it was so interesting because she's older now, and I was so fascinated about the stories from the perspective of a woman who's gotten beyond the quote acceptable age in that industry. But then I was also curious though of like the role age plays in so many different things for women, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely that. It's definitely, like, I think, a concern for every young actress, but there's definitely roles there, you know, there really is. And if you are, you know, past the whatever that age is, I don't know, I think people perceive it to be different stages, but it's, yeah, maybe you're not playing like the lead all the time, maybe it's a different role, but if you're like
the aunt or the mom or something,
yeah, or, you know, God, I'm watching Stranger Things right now, and like there's like a show about like these kids. It's like a horror. It's about psychedelics, but it's like a really it's like a thriller. And the mom is Winona Ryder, and oh my God, she is incredible in it. So yeah, there's definitely still roles out there, and I think that, you know, you can't be in that season of your life for your whole life. That's just not realistic.
Yeah. I remember Winona Ryder in Beetlejuice. Did you ever watch that growing up? That movie?
I didn't. But I know, I've seen like clips of it. But yeah, I think it's like you can't be in like the princess archetype for your whole life. You have to move into the queen. You can't always be in that like maiden season. You've got to move into the mother eventually. But with acting, it's like we kind of deny that change. Like try and keep looking like a 21-year-old, but it's just not real life. You know?
And I remember when I connected with her, she was saying that her boyfriend teases her sometimes about like taking these younger actresses under her wing, because I think she said he calls them her projects, and she's like, but I care because I've been there and now I have some wisdom to share, and like, why would I not help these people if I can? So, and I think it's also interesting too, one of the other reasons I ask is I'm always curious because there's so much unfair judgment or value placed on age in our culture, our collective culture, especially for women. And it's just interesting to me always to see that, you know, you have women who are much older than you in your programs and you're able to help them. I have women who are much older than me in my programs and we're able to help them. And there's also no age limit on having an issue, right? Or they're still having something that's unresolved, regardless of like how long. For some people it was dormant and then it like never even got activated until a certain point. My friend Betsy Blankenblaker, have you ever heard of her?
No.
She wrote a book. Her first book is called Autobiography of an Orgasm. And then she has a couple of anthologies. And her most recent book is called Beyond O. And basically the age of 45 is when she started to study orgasm and get in touch with her body and heal from her own sexual trauma. So I've been trying to get her on the podcast for months. Maybe by the time your interview comes up, she'll be scheduled and on the way, because I'm reading the book right now so we can have that conversation. But again, like I love to bring this up because it's never too soon to get started. And there's never really an advantage. Like your age doesn't really give you an advantage or a disadvantage in this kind of way.
So I don't think so at all. Like it's really not. And like, I have a lot of women in my program that are yeah, like that much older, but they've been living their lives in a particular way for like, they've been, in diets for the last 30 years of their lives. And it's only now that they're starting to kind of realize what it's like, the damage that it's been doing to them. And we can have that kind of breakthrough or that wake up call at any point in our lives. And great if we have it when we're like 19, amazing, and that kind of gets us into this route of like changing our mindset and like growing ourselves and healing and all that stuff. But like for a lot of people, they have to go through a lot of stuff before they're even ready to hear it. And I mean, for me, it took me like 7 years of playing out the same patterns with food and going to several different therapists. And they were all trying to get me to have a breakthrough. They were all trying to make me see what I was doing to myself and see what I needed to do and see how I needed to change. But the truth was, I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to hear it. I didn't want to hear it, really. I said that I did, but I wasn't fully there yet. And so I kept choosing control. I kept choosing to go back to my old patterns. And it's only when no one decides when you're ready. Like, it's only you. So like for these women that are like, 57 and in my program, they've probably spent their whole life, it's taken them maybe that long to actually hear it in the right way, or to have a penny drop, or to have some breakthrough on their own. But it's different for everyone. You have to kind of come to that for yourself and then be like, okay, I am ready. Like, I am completely willing to surrender all of this shit that I've been doing to myself. But you can't decide when that happens for someone else.
Yeah. It reminds me, I think I reference this probably at least once a month on the show. There's an Elizabeth Gilbert quote that goes along the lines of, I've never seen any big transformation happen without somebody first getting tired of their own bullshit.
Yes. And that's exactly what it is. It's just like, I am just sick and tired of my own bullshit. Yeah. I am ready to just surrender now. I'm done. I'm done.
Done. So can we go back? I'd love to hear you speak a little more specifically about the brainwashing that happens in diet culture.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's a whole, I think we are coming out of it now a little bit, or at least I'm seeing like a lot more women empowering themselves around their food and their body image now. But it's definitely been an era of equating food to morality, and basically women just determining how good or bad they think they've been based on what they've eaten in a day, and using a number on the scale to decide what it means, what that means, or what that says about them, which is absolutely nothing. It doesn't say anything about them. It just says a weight, just like your birthday, or like your height. Like it's not supposed to mean all this stuff about you. But it's been used as like this tool for women to just like shame themselves and guilt themselves. And in turn, they're putting their lives on hold, really saying that I can't do this, that, the other. I can't go and reach my big goal or my big dream or anything else, or go on a date or wear this kind of clothes until I've got to this weight. And dieting really teaches you to be unhappy now with the false promise that you'll eventually be happy later. Mm-hmm. Like if you just struggle, and yes, it's painful, but, just stick a photo of someone else on your fridge and then that will motivate you. And it's just like, it's this whole motivation by fear, and it's all based in fear and control. And there's no love going on. It really shatters your confidence and shatters your ability to really see your greatness. And in a lot of ways, I think that it's a way for women to really be suppressed and become sheep, to be honest, and just follow these rules, do what they say. And they're kind of really stripping themselves of their own power, giving all of this power away to some diet guru or someone that's dished out a ton of rules on social media. And they've gone, well, I'm going to give my power away to them, or that rule, or that food, or that diet. And they're blocking off their own wisdom, their own body wisdom, and their own intuition. Because when we're like constantly just dieting, trying to manipulate our bodies, trying to manipulate our food, we lose touch of that divine connection, that intuition we have with our bodies. And, some of the women that come into my programs, they don't even know what hunger feels like. They don't even know how to connect with their bodies. It's like an alien concept. And that is the effect that diet culture has on us. It just completely disconnects us from our bodies. So that really is a huge part of the work that I find, is just getting women back into their bodies. And I know you know all about this with Wild Soul Movement.
Yeah. So what does hunger feel like for people? Is it, so here's, let me give context to the question. In Wild Soul Movement, because I'm getting people connected to trust and intuition often, and like their own inner truth and inner wisdom, that expresses differently for everyone, right? Like some people see things, some people hear things, some people feel things, some people get more of a direct knowing. Like intuition shows up differently for people, and inner authority behaves differently for different people, right? Like some people, their gut instinct is correct. Some people get a gut instinct and they actually need to sleep on it. So we're built a little differently. Is hunger, I've never thought about this in this context before, is hunger like that, or is like hunger consistently, this is what it should feel like?
Well, hunger is, a lot of people think that hunger is something that comes on in their head. And so like a lot of people are just eating when they feel like something happens in their mind, and they're like, I got to eat now. And a lot of the time it's not real hunger. Like if you really want to pay attention to your hunger, it's in your body, like it's your body talking to you. But oftentimes it's like an emotional craving, or it's something that's triggered us throughout the day, that's made us feel a certain way, whether that's stressed or anxious or sad or lonely, or like we want to avoid something often. And then we mistake that for hunger. Or it might even be that we've just like programmed ourselves to believe that now it's lunchtime, but our body's not even actually asking for any food, right? So that is really important, to kind of pay attention to where you feel your hunger, and like, is it in the mind, or is it genuinely your body speaking to you?
Yeah.
What is going to give you lasting nourishment? Like what is really going to nourish you? Because often when we get an emotional craving, it's just like we fixate on a specific food, and it's usually for like salt or sugar, or so it's like usually like a specific thing that we think that we need. But often when we get in touch with our bodies and we really notice our body speaking to us with like real genuine hunger signals, it usually comes on much more gradually over time. So we can kind of really get to kind of think, oh, what's going to really nourish me? What's going to feel good for me? What does my body want from me right now? What can I feed it to like really set myself up in a good way?
Yeah.
And so like that takes a bit more patience and a bit more time. And especially if you've been someone that's like dieted all your life, or yo-yoed like I did. No patience, exactly. And it almost feels scary to trust your body, which, obviously dieting is like, it basically makes you think that you can't trust your body. Yeah. You've got to manipulate, you've got to control it, you've got to keep it at this weight. So like just trusting your body is such a huge deal. Like trusting that your body is not going to like get obese if you don't have a diet. Just trusting that you're not going to just like completely go crazy if you don't have rules. Like if you learn to trust your body, like you can learn to trust yourself. And intuitive eating is really paving the way for intuitive living, and being in touch with your intuition of your body goes hand in hand with just being in touch with your intuition and trusting your gut. So your food decisions can be a mirror of your life decisions. And if you don't trust yourself around food, then you probably don't trust yourself around your life.
Yeah. And again, not in such I feel like statements like that sometimes not always absolute, but in context, right? Like if you don't trust yourself around food, how is that probably showing up in other areas of your life to varying degrees, right? Not like if you don't trust yourself here, you definitely don't trust yourself anywhere else in no way, shape, or form.
Of course, but like obviously your relationship with food is a reflection of your relationship with life. So there will be some parallels, and it's just super interesting to notice what those parallels are, whether it's control, whether it's out of control, whether it's trust, what feelings it brings up for you, if that's like anxiety or if that's stress, if that's chaos. But yeah, like for sure, like seeing the parallels between food and life, or food and like how you feel about yourself. And like you said, like it's kind of like that thing of like how you do one thing is how you do everything, which obviously isn't, I guess, absolute, but there are definitely, your relationship with food can often also have a lot of similarities to your relationship with money or your relationship with time or, fill in the blank.
100%.
So it's always comes back to us. It was never about the food. It's always about us and our life.
How do you articulate the difference between hunger and cravings?
Ooh, so this is really interesting for me because I've recently written my second book, which is about satisfying your deeper cravings, which is understanding what you think is a food craving is actually a life craving or a soul craving. So to really pay attention to when those cravings come on, and like a lot of people, like I think, want to compartmentalize food away from relationships, career, like life stuff. But often there's so many links and hidden messages that we can explore. So where does that what actually created that craving in the first place is often not a craving for sugar like we think it is. Often it's a craving for something much deeper. And often it can lead us to look at where in our life we feel unfulfilled, whether that's our career, whether that's how much play we're getting in our life, whether that's relationships, self-love. So yeah, that's something that's really fascinated me recently. And for me, creativity has come up a lot. And I think when we get into the business world, we can can abandon some aspects of that. And I think a lot of adults generally that kind of are doing this adult thing are abandoning creativity in a big way. And often what we're craving is a bit more play and creativity and real connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that 1,000%. I never really had any issues with emotional eating until I moved across the country from all of my family and friends. And then I was just not having the level of connection that I was accustomed to and the level of safety. And that's when I kind of started being an emotional eater.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, when I look back and see when my stuff with food was the worst, it was when my environment didn't feel safe or when I felt a lack of connection, a lack of fulfillment. And that is what leads us to act out in addictive behaviors. Yeah. And, addiction sounds like it's the most obvious forms of addicts. But emotional eating or just reaching for stuff to fill a void is all that I mean by that. Yeah. But it shows up for everyone. And social media, gosh, I noticed for myself, even now, obviously I don't act out with food anymore, but I noticed that sometimes if I feel a bit nervous, I can just grab my phone in a second, and before I know it, I'm what's going on right now?
30 minutes goes by and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah. So, but it's just a loving awareness is all that really requires of just having a little pep talk with yourself and going, okay, what was I avoiding in that moment when I opened the fridge door or when I grabbed my phone or when I, poured a glass of wine or what was I avoiding? What was I really craving? What was that void that I was trying to fill? Yeah. And yeah, it's a lot more, it's a lot harder to maybe look at that and pursue living a fulfilled life than it is to just keep eating Oreos and ice cream and just pretending that that's completely separate from your life. Yeah. But I think to do that requires you to get really honest and requires you to really love and accept what you find and what comes up. Yeah.
So the book is called Hungry for More, right?
Yes.
Am I allowed to say that yet? Okay, good. I was the book is coming out in May, so probably by now people can pre-order, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so your website, it's melwells.com, but we'll also get a link to the pre-order page. I'm sure that'll be a different link or something. We'll make sure that's all in the show notes. Yeah. So I want to ask you the random questions now. You already told us you've been watching Stranger Things. Do you watch anything else?
At the moment, we're just obsessed with Stranger Things. That's it.
Okay. I couldn't bring myself to watch the second season.
Really?
It's too
Why?
stressful.
Do you know what? Yeah. Oh, God, we are just hooked on it, though. Hooked. The kid actors are so good.
They're so amazing. Have you ever seen that? Have you seen clips of them on the Jimmy Fallon show?
I have, yeah.
They're amazing. They're amazing. They're so talented. Are you reading any books right now?
I'm reading 3 books right now. I'm reading Grit by Angela Duckworth. I'm reading Mastery by Robert Greene. And I'm reading The Storytelling Animal. Can't remember the author's name. Oh, but yeah, I'm doing like one on Audible, one on Kindle, and one in like a paperback.
I'm the same. I have something anywhere that I could possibly. It's funny. I've interviewed 4 people today, and everyone was reading minimally 3 books.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know you're in Bali. I know you travel a ton. What's the trip that you're most looking forward to in 2018?
Oh, it would have to be the Maldives. I'm running a retreat in the Maldives in November. And actually, I'm running like a competition to win a free spot with the pre-order campaign of my book.
Cool.
So yeah, this is probably relevant for people listening right now. But if you pre-order my book, Hungry for More, you'll get entered into a competition to win a spot on the Maldives retreat that I'm running in November.
That's amazing.
So yeah, super excited for that. And also we're going to South Africa together.
We're going to South Africa. I'm so excited for that.
And Hawaii as well.
What'd you say?
And we're going to Hawaii as well.
Yeah, we're going to Kona. We got a couple trips coming up this year. I'm so pumped. We are definitely going to be spending time with all the coolest animals together.
I know. Oh my God. I'm so excited for that. I've never been on anything like that before.
I've never done a safari, and it's been a thing that's always been on my list that I've always been like, am I a safari kind of person? Could I do that? But have you ever read any of Martha Beck's books?
No, I haven't.
She does work. I forget what it's called. And her place is in Landalazi, which I also forget what country it's in. It's in Africa, but I forget what country. I want to say Kenya, but I might be wrong about that. But tracking. And she takes coaches there and leads retreats and things like that. And it's part of connecting with like the real wild nature. And the first time I read a Martha Beck book where she talked about that was 2013. And that seed has kind of been planting, but it's actually not true. I had one call with someone once about going to Landalazi. But it's not really been anything I've ever like prioritized or pursued. And so for people listening, like the way this came up is because we were supposed to go on a trip to Necker Island this past October, literally just a couple weeks after Hurricane Irma came through and decimated the island. So we were still going to Necker, but not till like 2019. And so there's a couple other trips happening instead. And the group that we were going to go with kind of bonded, and it's become this mastermind kind of thing, which is so cool. Like,
oh, it's the coolest. I love it so much. I'm really grateful. Obviously not
that Richard Branson's island got destroyed, but definitely that it's brought together this group of people that otherwise was just going to like go on one trip together.
Yeah, exactly. It's turned into something much more beautiful.
100%.
So yeah, lots of cool travel happening. But I'm actually relocating to London in a month and a half because of the book launch, because I want to be around for like stuff around for the book. But yeah, I've been in Bali for the last 18 months and I love it so much. I would definitely say that it's my soul home, but I definitely am missing that culture of city life just a little bit, and like the beautiful systems that we have that keep us safe.
Yeah.
You know.
Amazing. So thank you. I'm so glad we finally got to hang out. This was basically us meeting for anyone listening. This is like, we've been connected on social media. We've gone back and forth in some messages and in that group, but this is basically the first time I actually get to meet Mel. So thank you, Mel, for being here and for sharing. Thank you for people listening for, being here as we kind of hang out and get to know each other a little bit. So I already gave everyone the link to the show notes. We'll put links to book, to your giveaway, because who doesn't want to go to the Maldives? How cool would it be if someone listening to this show goes to the Maldives with you?
That would be so cool.
Oh my God. So I'll see you. I mean, for sure, I'll see you in June, if not sooner.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Bye, Mama.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Bye.
The joy and the suffering is what makes us who we are, makes us our beings. Our problem is we just want to, the pendulum swings, we just want the pendulum to stay over on the joy side.
Yeah.
But really that suffering, all of our scars are what make us, this beautiful person that we are.